it doesn't have to be one form, but it's however it needs to show up for you to get the guidance and the message that you need. It's all very fluid out there.
Is it typically a family member that is doing this, or is it sometimes just the most random thing?
Sometimes it's a family member, or people will have several guides and one of them will be a family member. But your main man is what I call it. I call it like a main man or a main woman.
Oh, cool.
Will not be a family member. They'll be a part of your soul tribe, like a soul family, but you will never have met them in a body. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah. Like we're getting into I feel like he's my main man. He's part of my soul tribe.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
And they'll usually show up. Spirit will play little games with me or give me little clues. And so I'll see, quote, the main man, because the main spirit guide will show up in like a robe and a hood, looking all kind of sinister. I'll be like, oh, your main man showed up, as opposed to like a secondary guide or a loved one.
I'm glad I don't get to see that. I would think that was the Grim Reaper if someone in a robe showed up with a hood on. I'd be like, here I go. Here I go.
It's just Spirit's way of communicating it to me. It'd probably be a lot nicer for you.
I don't know. I think I envision my main man, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. He would probably be like a 6'5" black dude with some sitting on some or like those pimp shoes with goldfish in them.
Yeah, the platforms, with the goldfish in them. And yeah, absolutely, I see that for you. So, but I'm kind of along the same belief as you. I believe that there's a higher power. I believe that there's life after death. I believe that there's something else out there. But I'm not very religious, so I don't place one God on a label on it in that way. I mean, there's so many hundreds and hundreds of gods that I can't say that mine is the one that's correct. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the way I always pass along information that I get is as I understand it, because I never want to say something because I heard it from someone else. It's always like, okay, did I get this directly? And my understanding is humans, we don't get to understand the totality of creation. That's not what we're here for. We're here to be little humans and have little human experiences. So we get little pieces here and there to kind of help us muddle along and help us enhance our experience. But it's like a patchwork quilt. It's like, I have a little piece here and you've got a little piece there, and let's stitch those together, and then we'll take another little piece from someone else and stitch it together. And we'll never get the whole picture, but we get enough, right? So that tells me that creation is big enough for all of it to be true and all of it to be nonsense all at the same time.
God, exactly. Do you believe that in reincarnation that we get a couple of different tries at this, and then because there's some kids and my girlfriend is of a high belief that, like, our son, our youngest son, he's been here before. I mean, he is a mature little man who has a lot of knowledge and seems to have his stuff together already. And then you meet some kids that it's like, this is definitely their first time around
chasing butterflies,
right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So do you is that something that you believe, or how could you explain that?
Okay, well, so reincarnation, the way that we understand reincarnation is our understanding of time. And our understanding of time is that it's linear and it moves in a forward progression and going backwards and forwards. But it is scientifically proven that time does not exist that way. That is simply our illusion. That's how we perceive time, but that is not the reality of time. The reality of time is, think of it like little drops. Okay, like drops of water is kind of how I envision it. So when you're talking about reincarnation, you're talking about going from past to future and multiple lives along a single line. But you need to expand that, bring it out. If every moment is happening at the same time, then you're living all of these different lifetimes at the same time. Wow. And even if it happened in your past, what we consider our past are happening at the same time. And when you're remembering something, you're not remembering something on a linear line. You're traveling to another drop of time to relive that experience with your consciousness, which is why, like in the courtroom, eyewitness testimony is so seriously unreliable, because maybe you're dipping into another drop in time. Maybe it's the same scenario, but it's slightly altered because you're having a slightly different experience. And you can do the same different bodies in different dimensions that you're living in on different worlds, different galaxies, different everything. It's all happening at the same time.
Well,
so when we into an old soul or a new soul and kind of feel like, wow, this is a really old soul. What's going on is all the souls are the same age. There's really no such thing as an old soul or a new soul. It's what is that soul expressing in this particular moment in time.
So my grandmother, she, real conservative, church-going individual, she truly believes that she can remember herself being born. And mind you, she's like 84 years old. And she swears that she can remember herself being born. Is that kind of like on the same process as what you're talking about? Like, is that possible? Do you even have something like that going on?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it could be that. So one of two things could be happening. She could be literally traveling back in time, because we do that with our mind. We travel in time and we view. We're back in time. I say back in time because we're also used to linear thinking, but you know what I mean. Travel to another moment, another drop in time. Or I just read an article the other day about a woman who has a very rare condition that means she can remember every single moment of her life. My brother is someone who says he remembers being a baby, experiences as a baby. So yeah, absolutely, it's possible. I don't know if it's necessarily a mystical thing with her. It may be, just a physical, the way her brain physically works, that she can remember that. That'd be amazing to remember that. I'm not sure I'd want to remember that. It sounds traumatizing.
No, she could tell you everything. It's like you kind of look at her and be like, "Are you being real? Like, come on."
So, do you believe that maybe dreams?
I imagine that remembering your birth is like experiencing death. Like, I feel like it's a similar experience.
That's heavy.
Well, I don't know. I can't remember either. Like if I've reincarnated, I don't know how or why.
And do you think that dreams are part of those little jumps into the drops of time that because you've experienced something maybe in the past or you've experienced a trauma early in your life and this is a fear, or what would you explain? Because I know you do dream interpretation, correct?
I dabble in dream interpretation, and I'll tell you that it's really interesting. It's partly our subconscious. It's a dream. So if you have a really vivid dream, and it's, lots of color and you're interacting with people in a really visceral way in your dream, that's more like traveling or dimension hopping. But other times when you're just kind of dreaming and not really paying attention, and it's just churning, it's just your subconscious, churning stuff out and dealing with stuff. So what I always say to people, when they come to me for dream interpretation, they say, what does this piece of my dream mean? And I say, well, how did it feel? And they blink at me a couple of times. Like, what do you mean, how did it feel? This is what I saw, and it was wild. Okay, it was wild. How did it feel? That's how you, the simple way to interpret your dreams is not, it's personal symptoms. And then also, how do you feel? How did it make you feel? And one of the games that, spirit or consciousness will play with us is it'll throw symbols at us and then have us go on a little treasure hunt. Go learn about the symbolism. So, for example, I remember one time I had a dream about there was a red hat in my dream, and it really, really stuck out at me. And it felt kind of powerful to me to see this red hat, and it was blowing in the wind. So when I looked up, I just Googled red hat symbolism, like red hat symbolism, dream symbolism, and I came up with a site on Edgar Cayce on dream interpretation, and he actually had a definition of a red hat, and it really resonated and hit home with me. I don't remember what it was now, but that's the kind of games that that spirit will play with you, and that's designed to sort of build your faith muscle. Like, you can trust this, because sure. we can have the most profound spiritual, crazy experience, and 10 minutes later be like, did I just make that up? So that's why we get to play games like that.
See, because so I'm going to ask you about this. I have had throughout my entire lifetime since I was a child this recurring dream, and it's a nightmare. And it's and I don't know why, because it's not anything that you would interpret as a child or even as an adult as something scary. It's like there's no monster, there's no anything. So I'll just I'll break it down for you. But I wake up from this dream literally, like, even as an adult, sometimes when I had it, and I haven't had it in quite some time, and I'm not sure why, but even as an adult, when I had this dream, I would wake up with a racing heart, sweating like crazy, and crying. It's that scary to me. I just feel this fear. So what the dream is it's me in this square room with no windows, no doors, and there's a ball. There's a ball in the corner of the room, the opposite corner from me. and I can move around and I can move in the room, and the ball just starts growing. And it's slow. It's not rapid, but it starts to grow and it starts to grow and it starts to grow. When I go over and I touch this ball, it's like one of the most irritating feelings. Like, have you ever touched something that the texture just made you, I don't know, kind of give you the EBGBs? Right. So when I go over and I touch this ball, it gives me that feeling. So I can't move it out of my way or anything like that. And it just keeps growing and growing. And as it's growing, my fear just intensifies and intensifies. And I thought at first, maybe this is like you feel claustrophobic or something like that, like the ball is closing you in, but it's not. It never gets big enough to where I'm like trapped in a corner or in any part of the room. But when I have this dream, and I've had this dream probably over 100 times, it scares the shit out of me, and I don't know why. And it's the exact same dream over and over and over again, but. I mean, I wake up crying, shaking, sweating. Like it's like, God, I'm afraid to even go back to sleep for some reason. And
oh my gosh,
over a room and a ball. I don't get it. So what do you think? What do you think of that?
Tell us.
You brought up something that hit me right away. Was like, it's suffocating, but you don't feel like that's the case because it never actually gets big enough to suffocate you.
Right.
But I think what you're dealing with is the fear of suffocation. This also feels like it's past life stuff for you. I mean, again, we say past life because we're used to linear times, but another lifetime, something bleeding into this one.
No, I believe in it.
Yeah. Like in a small room, you have a limited amount of space. So you have a limited amount of space, you have a limited amount of resources, and then this ball just keeps getting bigger, 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 and it's threatening those resources. It's threatening you in some way. So do you ever feel like, you're not really allowed to be who you are? Like who you really, really are? Do you ever feel like your voice is stifled? Did you used to feel like that as a kid?
Man, that's. I guess so. I mean, I was kind of a troublemaker when I was a kid, and kind of a rebel. I mean, my mom says I was a perfect kid until I was like 10 or 11 years old. Everybody that knew me wanted
mine.
Really? so everybody all of my mom's friends wanted a child just because, I want a child like Michael. I want and then I turned 11 years old and everything went to hell. I have no idea what happened. But I've had, I don't know. I mean, I've never really had a problem speaking my mind. I've never tried to self-filter or anything like that. Maybe that's my problem. Is that
maybe that's your problem now?
Right.
No, it feels to me like a danger of losing resources, losing space, not having enough, not being able to be enough, like big enough. That's the feeling I get with it.
Because I used to think it was something about claustrophobia or something like that, which nobody likes to be in a small little trapped area where you can't move. But it doesn't really freak me out or scare me.
Yeah, but it feels bigger, like a life thing. Like you don't want to be boxed in life. That's what it feels like to me. Like you don't want to find yourself stuck in your life. Not about being in. It's not the room. It's not the room. The room is symbolic of just your world, your environment. And frankly, I feel like the world is never really going to be big enough for you anyway. So the fact that the world isn't big enough for you, and then you've got this freaking ball, growing and growing and growing, and making your space smaller and smaller and smaller. That's panic-inducing.
Yeah, crazy. Okay. Maybe that's why I jump job to job to job, and I don't want to be stuck anywhere.
You think?
Or I'd say looking in the mirror all day long when you're working out and wondering if you need to get bigger.
maybe that's the case too. I'm not big enough. The world needs to grow.
I'm suffocating.
That's funny. So, when you are doing your job, do you ever have to deal with people who just call you up and just give you a ton of shit? Like,
just
you should know. You're like, hi, what's your name? Oh, you should know. Those type. Do you ever have to read those people?
I have run into that, and I find that if I charge enough, people don't bother me that way.
That's amazing. Oh, I love that.
So you're not the typical online or the phone genie that it's like your name starts with G.
Right.
I'm actually really terrible at bringing through names. Even when I do mediumship, when I'm channeling loved ones or I'm whatever I'm channeling, it's like I'm not terribly clairaudient. So there's the 4 clairs. I don't know. Are you familiar with those? Like different ways that people access their intuition?
Not familiar with
Oh, okay. So There's clairvoyance, which is called clear seeing. So it's seeing things in the mind's eye and getting information that way. There's clairaudience, which is clear hearing. So it's hearing voices and hearing things. There's clairsentience, which is feeling. So your emotions and your body will give you information. And there's claircognizance, which is just clear knowing, which is like when you just know something. One of you is very cognizant. It's the one with the